name is Marcelina, and I am a master student at UiB. And also, as Daria introduced me, I'm going to talk about the role of algorithm in political polarization. And it's going to be a very general overview, and hopefully it's going to serve as a introduction to more detailed topics that are going to come later on. Can we change the slide, please? Yes, and another one. So very basically, an algorithm is a mathematical set of rules that specify how a group of data is going to behave. And it is mostly used on social media to help manage it and to expand the popularity of the certain platform. So all the big social media like Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube use algorithms primarily to prioritize the content that is being shown to different users. And the goal, we can say, for this social media is to be as popular as possible. So their ultimate task is to make sure that users spend as much time as possible using their specific platform. So it is in their best interest to show us the content that we are going to engage with for the longest amount of time. So naturally, they want to maximize the user interaction, and they do that by showing the content that users are most likely to engaged with. And then this approach can lead to something that can be potentially dangerous in the future, especially with the current trends that we are observing right now, where social media has become equally relevant to, for example, media outlets, because in recent years, more and more users are using social media as their primary source of, for example, political information. And in the recent study in the US, it was shown that the percentage of people that are use social media as their primary source has rose to 46%. So almost half of the population are taking their information not from news or typical newspapers, but from the social media precisely. And it is also being shown that it not only doubled since the year of 2013, but is also still on the rise. So that's why this approach that the social media is taking right now can be potentially dangerous, because it can lead to creation of something that is called an echo chamber or filter bubble. So and echo chamber occurs when people are being exposed only to the views that they are primarily in agreement with. Because if you are interacting with a certain stance or a set of beliefs, it is the role of the social media that you are using to show you mostly the content that is going to be similar. And therefore, you are mostly exposed to the stuff that you already agree with. And then you do not really have the time or the resources to fact check or be exposed to the views that are opposed to your own, but might be closer to the objective state of things. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, for example, if users are mostly engaged with politically conservative content, the algorithm will prioritize only similar content for them, and therefore it will reinforce their views that are already existing. And that can be also potentially dangerous, because it can lead to further political polarization. And if users are exposed only to views that are aligned with their beliefs, it can lead to more of ideological extremity and greater divinity between the political groups. And that is also relevant in context of another phenomenon that was mostly coined around 2016 and also US presidential elections, when the term fake news was popularized. And also during that time, it's been studied more. And for example, 2 and 3 adults that were the subject of the study between that time, during the years of 2016 and 2018, have reported that they have been exposed or shared something that turned out to be fake later on. And then that is relevant in regards of what I've already said. So if you're only exposed to the predetermined set of beliefs, and this is the only content that you interact with, it is, from the marketing point of view, it is good for the social media to show you something without fact checking it, because even if it's fake, it's something that you already agree with. So you're more likely to spend even more time and reinforce the beliefs that you already have in your mind. And that's how the echo chambers are created. And then many times people say that they meet individuals who live in their own bubble. And that means precisely this, that they are so convinced that they are right, and they don't need to, they don't need to think critically about their beliefs that they are standing behind, because this is all that they are being surrounded with. So it's very natural thing to think that you are the correct ones, and anyone who is in the opposition is entirely wrong. Mm. And yes, especially the elections are the time periods when it is on the rise, and that's why it was also more popular for the fact-checking companies to be on the rise. The whole idea began in the early 2000. However, the 2016 elections was kind of a turning point when it was obviously necessary that there will be an outside sources that would be doing only the fact-checking part, because the rise of fake news was so overwhelming that at some point people really it got out of control, and people didn't have the resources to check every single thing that they come across social media. So can we go to the next slide, please? Yes, and that leads me to the potential policy solutions, because there are different approaches that we can take to minimize the negative side of it. One of those would be to increase the user control. So give users more freedom of how they are going to interact with the content. For example, give them the option to prioritize content chronologically rather than algorithmically. And then another part, I know I'm running out of time, so I will just quickly sum up, would be to increase transparency, because this is also the core of the issue. For example, if we look at Meta, they are the more transparent one, in a sense that in the recent years, they are trying to be more open about how their algorithm works. But despite being open, it doesn't mean that it deletes the problem, because they are being transparent about how the algorithm works, but it works in a way that is not promoting the objective discussions, but rather the further creation of even more echo chambers. And we're only talking about Meta, who is trying to be transparent. On the other side, we have X, so former Twitter. And since they have significant changes in their policies, they are not even trying to pretend like they are trying to fight for transparency. For them, the main goal is making profit, and they are trying to maximize the user experience at all costs. So yes, I think that is all the time that I have today. Thank you for listening, and yeah, I'm open to any questions you would have.
The first time I'm moderating the event, so like I couldn't figure out where it's better for me to sit. But if there are any questions from audience, is fine. But like I also have a question to our discussion. Like as you have already mentioned that like X is kind of former Twitter. I'm used to calling it Twitter. That's they are not even like trying to be transparent about their algorithms. But I also wanted to ask you, like, what do you think about the the personality of the owner of that, or like different like social media, how it can
influence the content which is being like forced, which is being spread in on like this or like another platform like YouTube or something else. What are your opinion?
Yes, so that is also an interesting approach because, for example, what we saw in X specifically is that they were releasing reports when it comes to their transparency and their algorithms, and they were, for example, about 200 pages long in before the switch happened, and then when, of course, they had a new owner, and the same legal documents suddenly became 15 pages short, and they don't really address the core issues. And I also think this is a relevant approach because we see some of those people talking, for example, about Elon Musk. They are extremely political and they are being very engaged in a specific politician's, for example, presidential run. So of course, if they have this much power and of behind the scenes, there is for sure some lobbying going on. I think this is also something that if we don't have a set of rules that is predetermined of how we are going to enforce the transparency and at least try to create a space when the objective is to have the true information instead of the information that people want to hear, then it's going to only lead to further polarization because it's going to create a corner of the internet that is only for people who align perfectly with the views of people who have power over those social media platforms.
Thank you so much for your answer. If there are any questions, I think no. Okay, yeah.
I was wondering, what do you think about the role of the EU, for example, the EU as a protection board so personally, I am more sympathetic towards the EU, and I think that this is the direction that I mean, time will tell, but I think it's promising because at least something is being done. For me personally, the biggest obstacle that we're going to face is indifference. Because as long as there are legislative examples of people at least trying to have ideas of how to solve the problem, we are having discussions around it. If it's going to be centered around social media platforms primarily being guided by wanting to gather profit, then it's take us further away from the core of the issue.
I think we kind of ran out of time. Thank you so much for your presentation. Yes. It's fine. It's really sensitive one. Let's shift our focus to a specific context, the role of social media in shaping political discourse in Bangladesh. Please meet our next speaker, Nerufel. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll stay here. I'll signal you when you have one. No problem. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm Nilufar Nozrul. I'm a student of UiB for the Master's Program in Global Development, Theory and Practice. Yeah, can you show my slides? Yes. Yeah, thank you. The next slide, please. On July 2024, there was a quota movement actually formed in Bangladesh, which was actually student-led protest sparked. It's because of there was a 30% quota system especially for the freedom fighters in Bangladesh and their family members, which actually the main obstacles for the mass people to go into the job. So that's why the students who think about that this is actually, it's not true, it's not good for them. So they process some movements against it. However, the movement escalated when the government responded with a harsh crackdown. Security forces have been used to violence against the students and the mass people. So this is leading to the tragic outcomes, including over thousands of deaths, thousands of arrests, more than 2,000 arrested, and there is a legal actions against the protesters. The government also implemented an internet shutdown and imposed a national-wide curfew, severely limiting the communication and the movement. Especially the people who actually living in the abroad, we are actually on the dark because we didn't know what actually happened in Bangladesh in that time. We are always in tension because for me, even I could not call to my home for almost 7 days. So next slide, please. Yeah, so the thing is, on that time, actually, social media plays very crucial role. This is actually double-edged crucial role because once there was some fake news around over the social media because the internet actually shut down, and there are some propagandas from the government side and also from the protesters. So the people, we are actually mass people from the home, we don't know actually what's happening on Bangladesh. So there is actually what happened that time. The primary platform for the protester was the Korean before the internet shut down. They tried to use the social media, and then the brutality. There are some brutalities. They expose some with the video. They go with this video to the borderline with the India because we have the border on the three parts of Bangladesh with the India, and they send via the Wi-Fi from India to the to the other countries. So we know that the brutality is happening in Bangladesh, and this is also a propaganda because all the time the brutality doesn't mean that it what the scenario was, but they show in the other way. So the misinformation was spreaded all over the world about Bangladesh. Show me the next slide, please. Yeah, so the ruling party also takes some strategy over the social media. So how to control the social media? The ruling party, the authoritarian party, those actually was power on that time. They were very much actually active on the social media. The Awami League actually they invested a huge money over social media to spread their activities, and also the opposition party, they also spent more money, and that's why actually the whole scenario becomes very misleading and miscommunication via the social media. But finally, the youth also have some influences over the social media, which lead to the nationwide movement, and that lead to the end of the authoritarian government, and we got the democracy at the end. The next slide, please. So how they actually weaponized the social media, that the political message reach wider the audience instantly, and they show some targeted campaigns for the people, and also the bot networks, this automated account spread the propaganda and misinformation, and the deep fakes. AI generated contents manipulates public perceptions because on that time there were some AI generated videos and AI generated photographs all over spreading in the social media, especially on the Facebook and the Instagrams, which actually lit the fire on that movement. Next slide, please. So there was some challenges to the digital democracy. Number one is the echo chambers. So this algorithm-driven content reinforces the existing beliefs, deepening the social divisions, and the internet shutdowns, which led to by the government, and government control access that threatens to the digital rights, and then the misinformation also spreaded, and the digital literacy gap. That actually we don't know what's happening on that time. Yes, next slide, please. To addressing the issue, so what was actually we can do for the next? Number one is the media literacy program. So it could be equipped the citizens to critically evaluate the online information, and the multi-stakeholder collaboration, government, tech companies, and fact checkers combat the misinformation together, and the internet protection policies ensure access during the political unrest, because in that time the political parties actually they shut down the internet without any consent from the mass people. They shut down without any information and proper information. At that time, the government actually telling many things against it. Like they said that they cut down the internet because of the power failure. They said that they have some system failure. There is no proper information. And the transparent of the political advertising. There should be transparency on the political advertising. Actually, the political parties should have some duty toward the toward the mass people. So actually what's happening? They should have some transparency on their advertising. Yeah, the next slide, please. So what we think about the future of the democracy, the empowered voters make the decisions based on the credible information, and the social media involves to the prioritizing the truth and accountability and the constructive dialogues, digital spaces for the meaningful democratic discourse. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Working.
Yes, thank you. Any questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Some NGOs that provide courses to universities or high schools, even if
Yeah, no, not all actually, it's not like that. Now the civil societies, they are actually having some activities on that issues to because this is the literacy over to spread about. And also some corporate level, they have some CSR activities on Bangladesh to show that how to use this social media to the mass people. Because you know, in Bangladesh, there is a huge people in Bangladesh. It's a very populated country. So it's very easy to misinformed by anything. So now the civil societies and also some corporate bodies, they are trying to spread over, they are using the newspaper and the conventional media for spreading these things, that this should be the proper guidelines to use the social media. So they are doing the things now. Yes.
How plausible do you think is the scenario that people would actually follow these guidelines? That
Actually, we don't know the thing. It's matter of research. I think so, because it's just a startup for the democracy. Because the last government we had for the almost 17 years, that time they possess some laws. They use some laws. This is we call the Digital Security Act. On that act, any of the national our citizens cannot write down anything against the political parties, or they could not have any status against the government. If they do it, so they should be arrested that time. So now there is a new government and we are optimistic, because I think that now people can actually know how to use the social media properly, and how to be the most transparent way, and what is the truth can be. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one question. And if nobody wants to ask, I actually do. Like one of the future prospects. Like you mentioned that having a constructive dialogue, but I think kind of maybe it's too far future, or I don't know, how do you think, how can a dialogue be framed if the government just shuts down every opportunity just to build?
No, and the same thing happened on that time that I came with this incident from the July that happened. But that time the internet was shut down, but there were some dialogues actually formed in the many places in Bangladesh, like the university teachers and also the journalists. They formed some dialogues between them and from the mass peoples.
Okay.
So this actually, it's like a snowball impact. Like they show that what is going on, and they told to the some peoples, and they are spreading over all, and it's actually going on that way, that time. Yeah. So I hope so it can be also working on the next future.
Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So yeah, we can continue with our case studies. We will discuss the impact of digital platforms on political discourse in Bangladesh, and now we can turn our attention to another powerful example of social media's role in shaping civic action, the case of Media Fair in Kenya. Please meet Tony Agutu Aviti, our next speaker. Yeah, just. You have 7 minutes, and if you need to persist to a new slide, you can just say, and yeah.
I think I need less than 7 minutes. Good morning. So my name is Tony Agutu, and on this year around July, I was in Kenya with a group of young people of my age. We were just going on with our normal lives, and our parliament decided that there is this new tax bill that has been debated that was widely unpopular, at least in a small sense. The opposition was not too much; it was still a bit growing on the ground. But despite these sentiments on the ground, and I think multinational and international organizations like IMF and World Bank gave their own signals that these bills, the bill I'm going to talk about was quite unpopular on the ground. So they were all indications of the people's sentiments about this finance bill. Just for a bit of a context, a finance bill is a bill we have every year that reviews how taxes will be collected in every financial year. But this particular bill was problematic because it was going to introduce very repressive tax regime. So today I want to handle on I just called it media fair on in Kenya, in our government versus how the people reacted to this protest. So next slide. Context. Okay, next. So the background. So on the morning of June, I think it's July 25th, there was a lot of conversation in our parliament and debate about whether or not this finance bill should be passed or not. But young people decided to go on TikTok and on Twitter just to understand this bill and try to break it down in our local languages. Kenya has over 45 languages. So the political class was trying to use mass media to convince mostly people in the rural areas like people who don't have access to information, to convince them that this particular bill is good. But young people went to TikTok and Twitter to try to translate this bill into our local languages, because there's a huge population of people in Kenya who may not understand, especially those who are our grandmothers and our mothers. They might not understand what this bill was saying. But young people who are at least university students had the understanding of this bill, and we were losing support from our mothers and our grandmothers who couldn't understand why we are opposing it. So we went online, we went on TikTok, we went on Twitter to translate it into our local languages. So this is one way we are using social media as a tool for public participation. And the only thing that we never foresaw that this particular approach was going to lead to nationwide protests that went ahead into invading parliament and the parliament being banged down, and we lost over 60 lives in the process. So next slide. So as our movement started in an organic way, because normally protests and public uprising in Kenya most times are politically driven. You find that a political leader can mobilize his group of supporters to protest a particular motion in parliament or to support a particular bill. But this particular one was an organic movement by the people. Young people themselves decided that we are going to oppose this. So the government was quite confused, because normally they would just find the person who is funding this protest and stop him and negotiate with him, and the protest is silenced. But in this particular action, they could not locate the voice behind the movement. So the government tried to fight back in various ways, apart from just arresting and sometimes killing young people. They went ahead to hire government bloggers to kind of fight back the narrative, because they were losing the narrative on the ground and online. So the government went and hired some bloggers, some spokespersons, communications, to run some counter hashtags from the organic hashtags that are coming from the people. So they employed various ways and means to push their hashtag. Sometimes they could arrest like someone with high followers. If you are a young person, you have so many followers on X, they could just abduct you and or block your phone. And even our local teleco, I don't know, like our version of Telia in Kenya, that one was accused of collaborating with the government to track people, because they can just track where everyone is. They were They were helping to find where influential bloggers are, to locate them and to crack down on them. So this is one way the government is trying to fight back, as apart from just pushing their hashtag. Next slide. So apart from just talking about this particular bill, there were calls that speaking and complaining about the bill is not enough, because no matter how much people were complaining and opposing this particular bill, no one seemed to respond and to act. So one influential person just said that, okay, if that bill is being passed tomorrow, we are going to be in that parliament with them. And it was like a joke, because no one knew anyone would show up. To our surprise, in the next morning, we had almost 20,000 young people on the streets. No one knows where they came from. No one knows who's mobilizing them. They came from all over the country, waving the Kenyan flag, and they were marching to parliament. So the government tried to fight back. They unleashed the military, but our constitution is very clear on when the military can be used to suppress dissent, because our military forces are not trained to suppress protest. They are simply to guard our territorial integrity. But they came to the streets, but they could not act on the young people, because they were like, we don't know what to do. This is not our job. So they just observed as young people were marching to the parliament and to the other government institutions. So next. So after our march to parliament, eventually the bill was passed, but following public pressure, the president came out and suspended the bill and said, okay, it's fine, I've seen your pressure, it's fine. But this one was coming after an afterthought. So many lives have already been lost. And he decided as a leader that, okay, I want to come to X, because he was trying to call people to come and negotiate with him. That what is the issue? Because he tried calling the leaders of these movements, they could not come, he couldn't find them. So he tried, okay, the young people say that, come to our X platform. We are faceless, you won't find us. We are not tribe, we're not into tribes, you are one nation, we want you to come to our platform. So he came to X, for interviews and to ask questions and to respond to why he proceeded with the bill. So he had an hashtag called Engage the President to respond on why he was pushing the bill regardless. Next. So the outcome is, of course, the civic space is expanded in Kenya right now. We have high public participation. People are taking more interest into how policies are being implemented in our country and how public participation is implemented, and the threshold of public participation is raising higher and higher, and our democracy is becoming strong. Next. So in conclusion, we hope that the momentum that is there in Kenya right now is still going on. And even as I speak, there's a lot of debate still online. Young people now want to form their own political party. They want to run against for office. They want to mobilize their own resources to run for office. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for presentation. You can stay here, sit here if you feel comfortable. Very interesting case of how just educational videos from TikTok can lead to a social movement. Are there any questions from the audience? Can you please use the box? Yes, because we need the sound for.
Thank you. Can you hear me good? Okay. I was just wondering if you faced any cases of persecution from authorities of people using social media to engage in the social movement, if maybe they were tracked down and yeah.
Yes. First of all, there is a day that our internet was shut down for like 5 hours. And so many lives were lost, and we don't know how many lives were lost, because through the teleco, the network company, they were able to track where everyone is. So we could not account. The government says 60 lives were lost, but we couldn't account of how many, because any repression or attack on anyone, we used to post it online. If someone is arrested, just post it on Twitter. That's how the protests used to work. So we couldn't account of how many people have been repressed, because the internet was shut down like for 6 hours. Yeah.
Any other questions in the audience? Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think we can proceed to the next one. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yes, to be honest, she will present herself.
For your
Yes.
Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I'm going to tell you about how social media, which is very well known to becoming like a very important and powerful tool in for influence, how it is employed by some countries, particularly our neighboring country, both Ukraine and Norwegian, Russia, to just deepen the division in the society. The next slide, please. It might sound a bit complex, but I want to interconnect several theories to make sense of what I'm going to say now, not to sound just like I'm blaming our enemy. So, origins of Russian aspiration to hegemony. I'm basing this presentation on the international theory of offensive realism, and according to that theory, the goal of each state is to maximize its share of world power. Without digging too deep into the IR theory, I just want to specify, to make clear two main notions of the theory. The first one is that great powers have means to harm other states in the conditions where survival is the primary goal of a state. And the second notion is that the best way for a country to ensure its survival in the system is to become a hegemon, that is the most powerful state in the system. What does it have to do with Russia, you might ask? And the thing is that in the literature, it's more or less accepted that the Soviet Union can be perceived as a regional hegemon in the Central Eastern European part of the world. And although the Russian Federation is the successor of the Soviet Union, according to the international law, such a status of a hegemon is not inherited the same way. Even the candidate for regional hegemon is not inherited that way. So they had to, bring back that power. And according to Paul Gregory, the agreement that the United States and Germany signed about the completion of the gas pipeline Nord Stream 2 shifted the focus from the Russian so-called near abroad to a more west-wide field of Russian ambitions, so moved their influence to a more global scale. Can you please press the next slide? And eventually, the means of waging war, which is, again, according to offensive realism theory, is the tool to ensure survival of the country. They evolved over time, and the term hybrid war became much more widespread. In July 2014, NATO Secretary General described it as what you see on the slide, combination of military actions, covert operations, and an aggressive program of disinformation. How does it affect democracy? You might ask. Please, the next slide. There are 5 criteria for a democratic process, according to Robert Dahl, but I'm not here to elaborate on that because you have your classes to get familiarized with that theory. So I will concentrate on the one condition that he elaborated on, which is the enlightened understanding. Next, thank you. According to Robert Dahl, each citizen should have adequate and equal opportunities for discovering and validating the choice on the matter to be decided that would best serve the citizens' interests. So that looks pretty obvious that everything of that is quite closely connected to freedom of speech and overall transparency. So Russian influence activities contribute negatively to that criteria of democracy. Next slide, please. First of all, the NATO Center of Excellence for Strategic Communications, also the EU External Action Services Information Review, and the guys that you see on the webpage, on the slide, they posted numerous reports about Russian propaganda in social media. For example, according to the Swedish Security Service, the Russian Federation is using disinformation campaigns to influence public opinion, and democratic decision making by questioning the credibility of democratically elected officials, and that is a long-term campaign on destabilizing and trust in the EU and NATO. For example, Russia used the migration crisis in Sweden to continue spreading propaganda. They depicted Sweden as a country in chaos, and it started within Russian media platforms, primarily RT and Sputnik. Further, that was spread to Swedish and American far-right outlets, and then eventually it ended up in the social media, people just reacting and reflecting on what was published on their private social media accounts. The next slide, please. Yeah, so I want to make you acquainted with such an organization that is IRA, and it's not what you might have initially thought about. This is the Internet Research Agency, which serves as a proxy for the Russian government that was conducting the influence operations with the approval of Vladimir Putin. It was funded by that guy who is no longer alive, according to the news. Good old times when these people were friends. So it was funded by Prigozhin, everything was approved by Putin, and they carried out sophisticated influence campaigns that the University of Melbourne called this the informational warfare. The IRA operated secretly as a troll farm under the guise of a digital marketing company. And mostly their target audience was worldwide, but primarily that was the United States. The next slide, please. You can see on the picture the headquarters of the IRA, and between these years that you see on the slides, they reached more than 100 million Americans on Facebook. They created accounts. By the way, on Twitter, almost all accounts like aesthetics pictures or cute videos or best cut videos, it's also the product of the IRA, and I can share links to that because this is the most efficient way to engage audience and then changing the topic of the web page or the account on or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. Yeah, they had the Facebook page Being Patriotic that was targeting American audience. You can see the number of likes they received, the reposts they caused, let's say, and you can see that their target audience is estimated in dozens of millions, not only in thousands. Also, FBI were involved in investigating the case of IRA activity. Yeah, and you can see that up to 2017, they reached 1.4 million users on Twitter. And according to the current estimates, the number might be even bigger with, as Marcelina mentioned, new Elon Musk's policies on Twitter, which just contributes to the more successful activities of such troll farms. However, in 2023, after the attempt of coup d'etat by Prigozhin, who funded this organization, Vladimir Putin was not very happy with the activities that they conducted, so they shut down that agency. However, it doesn't mean that those troll farms do not exist on a smaller scale. And all of this that I explained was mostly to make you ask yourself a question. That if you think that all opinions that you have that might be unique or debatable, and you think that this is your original thought, I want you to think more if this is actually your original thought, or you're just contributing to a country that wants to become the hegemon, and you are a part of their disinformation campaign. Thank you so much.
Presentation. Yeah, I even forgot to follow the time. Are there any questions from the audience? If not, because I have maybe in this time of information war and spread of fake news everywhere, Do you have any like friendly tips how to find like how to like differentiate fake news from the real one? How because not everyone has critical thinking, and especially now with the AI use, it's really difficult to check.
Thank you for the question. I think that there is no an easy solution to that. So if you want to be critical, you have to be a bit boring, because now, since 2014, I know that the EU launched a lot of courses on how to analyze information critically. There are criteria on how to spot the fake news or spot disinformation. There are some techniques. I will not name them. I'm so sorry with the microphone. I will not name them exactly, but there are like 10 ways how to understand that this is a disinformation campaign. Like if you feel very, but I think the easiest tip is that if you feel very emotional from some news, then you have to ask yourself, like, is this an actual source of information, or is this some kind of propaganda or disinformation that I became the victim of? But I would suggest not to be lazy and to check courses from like Atlantic Council organization or the EU. I guess the webpage is even called like EU versus disinformation, but it's not only for the EU, to at least have some free, open, small assigned courses, because that would never be extra.
Please use the box.
Oh, okay. Thank you for your presentation. My question is in regards to Twitter or X. Like, what do you think has motivated this recent, or what do you think motivations could be behind the recent flux of these misinformation campaigns on Twitter, specifically in regards to, for example, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and like, yeah, considering Elon Musk's more Russian-friendly stance. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that you answered your question yourself. I think that before that, Twitter was more abstract social media. Like you couldn't immediately say, I don't think many people knew who is the owner or who is CEO or something like that. And I think that just the current owner of Twitter is just promoting and creates the fertile soil for spreading the messages that he enjoys reading himself, to just surround himself with a confirmation bias.
Just in how we kind of circled up with our presentations, coming back to the thing that Marcelina started with, yeah, with the algorithms. Yeah, thanks so much for your presentation. If there are no more questions, I think we're pretty much done. Thank you very much for participation, for showing up this early. I think I hope it wasn't this challenging. And please enjoy the breakfast, coffee, snacks. I hope see you next time. If you have any suggestion for any other event we want to host, we want to discuss it with you. Thank you so much.